Hello and welcome to Take Heart Journey. Today is going to be epic, literally. I am so excited about our project today. It is the perfect way to spend one last week with the past to finish up our healing series and be ready to move into blossoms and blooms. And I hope that you love today as much as I do. This was one of my favorite things that I have ever done. So get ready to look back at your past one more time, but in a way that you have never quite done before. Let's go. So today, one of the big things that we are going to let go of is not only our background that we made last week, because that's what we're going to be using today, but we are also going to let go of all of the should haves and supposed tos as we look at where we are in our life in this moment. So many of us have not regrets, but kind of this standard or this plan that we had set in place about where we were supposed to be at this age, at this stage, whatever it may be. We had a plan and an expectation, and we are not where we wanted to be. And it's really interesting because this can go in so many directions. It could be about family or kids or marriage. It could be about career. It could be a physical health goal or something you wanted to have won or succeeded in, and you're not there yet. Well, today we're going to take all of that and we are going to romanticize it. There is a woman that I have followed on Instagram for a long time. Her name's Maria Andrew. And what she is known for, she lives in New York City and she romanticizes everything. She does little sketches and drawings that are really whimsical and beautiful, paired with words that she uses to romanticize everything from glancing at a stranger on the street to buying a bagel in a bagel shop that she loves. But she also, at the same time that she's romanticizing everything, I also notice that she's really always fighting against jealousy and envy and all those supposed tos and should haves. And she had a post a while back that I have been thinking about ever since that I thought was so brilliant. She posted about the idea that we often look at our lives, and in her words, we see it as this linear progression that we're supposed to go through with these certain life events that we're supposed to have achieved by that time. And so we look at others and we kind of give them a higher score, or we see that they're higher up the ladder than we are. And she gave a different metaphor for looking at our lives that I think is amazing. So let me read you exactly what she wrote. Instead of thinking about a linear path with levels to attain and coins to collect like a Super Mario brother, start thinking about your life as a big map that you sprawl across an old-timey desk. Let your hands glide all over it. Really feel those mountains and oceans and think about where you've been, to this friend group, to this neighborhood, to that relationship, to that time you were really into jam bands. Instead of thinking, I'm on level 5 and my friends are on level 10, take a look at your life map and maybe consider, I'm in New Zealand right now and my other friend is in Antarctica and my other friend is in the Netherlands. Different places, different joys, different challenges. So I have been thinking about this ever since she posted that. And so today, if you haven't guessed it, we are going to make a map. And it's going to be a map of our lives. This is not a linear graph. This is not literal. In fact, the whole goal today is to think of yourself as the hero of the story. And if you were on a hero's journey, where would you have been? What would you call the towns, the seas, the oceans, the dangers, all the things that you've been through. What would you name them? And it's also not a map where everything is in perfect order. I will show you mine, and I actually found such joy in showing how, it felt like I went way off track when I went here and then came back over here when the whole time, like, I'm wanting to get here. And it was so cathartic and fun for me to do. So a few things to think about as you did it, as you make your map. I thought about there's a literal 12 steps of a hero's journey, and I read through those before I got started, and I did not take each one and literally think of that in my own path, but it gave me a few things to think about. Like, what are some of the main pieces of a hero's story? And the ones that stuck out to me are the home, the status quo where you start, and the way the world is at the beginning. And for me, like, the quintessential version of that would be, the hobbits leaving Middle-earth, and how their little hobbit holes and their little way of life is so cozy and so beautiful. And that's, where the whole story starts. And so that's where our hero comes from, and that's what our hero is saving, but nothing is ever going to be the same. And so I wanted to make something that represented like my starting point, my home. There also are characters that you can see throughout the hero's journey. You see a mentor, that's one of the stages, and you see allies. And so I wanted to incorporate that in there somewhere. And so in my own journey, until now, mentors have been kind of devious, kind of throwing me off track. And so I wanted to include that in my map. And so you could think about who are the enemies, who are the mentors. And I don't mean literal names of people. I mean, if you could conceptualize it, what would you make that? And so that's what I did with my map. I also saw in a lot of maps and a lot of pieces of the journey, there's the danger, right? There's the fight, there's the treacherous area you have to travel through. So I really wanted to put that on the map. And there's a lot of other things in the hero's journey. There's acquiring the magic item, which is the sword or whatever it is that the hero's going to use. There's so many pieces in there. Those were a few that stuck out to me. So then the next thing I did is I pulled out my maps. And so I will show you, I grabbed some books right off the shelf, and I will show you exactly what I thought through as I got my map started. At first, this was too overwhelming for me to think of my whole life as a story, to have to process all of it at the same time. And so what I ended up doing is picking 4 places that I wanted on the map. I wanted a really positive place. I wanted the home that I started from. I wanted a dangerous spot, and then I wanted something unknown. So I wanted it to be that the story isn't done and there's somewhere unknown that I have yet to go. And so I just started with those 4, and you will see by the end, I have a whole map full of places. And so that was really, really fun and a really easy starting point to just have 4 things. My final thought is that for me, this is Take Heart Journey, and my map is labeled Farrell's Journey. And so much of what I am exploring through all of this is that I'm never alone, that somehow in some way God is part of this adventure that I'm on. And so I realized that I have had this affirmation card that I wrote in January, and it says, God knows where I am. He brought me here. We are on an adventure together. And so when I am able to look at my life and my story optimistically, I really can see it as an adventure that I am on with God, almost like a Psalm 23, that He's leading me through the dangerous places, through the highs and through the lows. And it also gives me hope that the ending of the story is going to be really good. I hope you are excited to make your map today. Let me tell you about today's supplies. All right, so the MVP of today is the Stabilo All. So you will definitely need your Stabilo All pencil. You'll need matte medium, which is what I use to activate it. You also could use water. It just means it won't be permanent when you're done. I also used a black pen to write in the names, and I had 2 or 3 colors of paint. So I had some green gold paint that I used, some white available to me, and some yellow. And that was really the basics of what I did. I used a little black as well. But it's not, I don't want you to think that it's a lot of, realistic drawings or even a lot of painting. Most of this for me was just sketching out the landscape, like just the shape of land, and using my matte medium to kind of bring that to life for me. And everything that I do is just sketched with the Stabilo All and then activated with the matte medium. So I actually ended up loving how it turned out, and this is really one of my favorite projects. So grab your background, your old worn leather, grab your Stabilo All, some matte medium, and I'd also say grab a notebook and a pen and spend a few minutes thinking through what you want on this map. Maybe you pick 4 places like I did that you absolutely know that you want on there, and I have a feeling the rest will fill itself out. All right. I hope you can tell how excited I am. I hope that this gives you a moment to really view yourself as the hero of this adventure that you are on, and to shift your perspective and maybe see this epic story of your life in a whole new way. Right, I am taking you with me today as I figure out the next thing I'm going to do with this project. Because we're about to make a map. We're going to make this into a map. So luckily, I am a little bit of a nerd, so all I had to do was go into my bookshelf and grab a couple of books that have maps in them, and they are so helpful because it's exactly what I'm picturing. So this is the Earthsea series, and this world, it's all little islands. So if you can see this, this is all islands. And, I was a little nervous about making a map because I was thinking about how it takes a lot of drawing, but all this are like little shapes with the words written next to them. Okay, so that's Earthsea. All right, this is from one of my kids' books, and one of my ideas from this one is how it's all folded up. So I'm like, maybe I'm gonna fold, but look at this. So it's got a banner, the name of the place. It's got like a couple of little islands. I actually really like the bridge here that connects. I feel like that would be a good starting place, like somewhere with a bridge where you have to go to the other world. You've got some mythical creatures flying around. So this one's really cool. And again, it's fairly simple illustrations, but like with the words written down. Okay. And then Winnie the Pooh. Did you know Winnie the Pooh has a map? Look at this. It's so dear. Okay, so we've got, it's all red and there's lots of trees, and this one has like a little winding path, and I really like that it's not like a straight line, or it's like this meandering path that I want to go down. So it's super simple. Everything's just labeled with like maybe a little teeny illustration here and there. Rabbit's friends. This is so cute. Okay, so this one's a little more whimsical. And the other thing I noticed, I think all of them have, is a compass. Okay, they also, this one has the compass rose. So they also all, to me, have places that look like castles, like there's a palace. This place looks regal. Then there's, let's see this one, if there's anywhere that's like the, like, seems like the kingdom center. No, because this one doesn't have like any buildings or anything. The other thing though about each of them is I felt like there was an area where you could tell this is where it's dangerous. This one, it had the Dragon's Run, and it's like kind of far away from all of these. This one, Bog Burp, it's like clearly that's not a place you want to go. Let's see if this one has anything scary. Yep, Eeyore's Gloomy Place. Trap for Heffalumps. These are so, oh my gosh, this is so cute. So looking at these, here are my ideas. We've got to find a way to make it mappish, whether we fold it up or we roll it up like a scroll. I want to have my starting point be like an island. I want to have somewhere dangerous, or like somewhere that it's like, I don't want to go there. And that also makes all of it to me feel more approachable because of how simple the illustrations are. So I'm going to brainstorm a little bit. That's going to be my next step. And then I'm going to start drawing on my map. So I sat and spent just a few minutes thinking this through. You can see all my crazy notes on the right. And I figured out the first 4 places that I am going to put on the map. So taking my Stabilo All, I am going to start sketching and writing. For me, this right here was the very hardest part because I love this background. I've never made a map before. I was scared to mess it up. And so just getting these first few marks on the page was a really big deal. You can see I'm holding the pencil towards the end because I didn't want anything to feel too perfect. When you think about land, it's not like perfectly curving lines. And so I hold it farther back when I'm making my land. So I'd say the first thing you should do is sketch in your 4 places. For me, it's that island on the right is going to be the origin of the story. That's where I'm starting out. I knew I needed a birch tree forest. When I thought of birch trees, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have these on my map because they're so symbolic to me. I knew for my scary place, I liked the idea of a bog that we got from one of the maps, and I decided the bog of confusion. And so this is where I put my shady character who's trying to lure our hero, me, in the wrong direction. And then I really wanted somewhere fun, somewhere I hadn't been yet, and so I made the Island of Magical Creatures. Now, part of watching me create is you are going to see so much of this changes by the end of this map. And that's something I actually love about the Stabilo. It is not permanent. And so everything that I've drawn could be wiped off with a little bit of water right now. And so that makes me feel free to sketch, to make up some names, to put writing that isn't going to be there at the end, and just have some fun doodling out my first few places. So you see, I've just already added a 5th place. I was like, I, think that what if instead of taking that simple bridge from the island over to the bigger landmass, what if I take a ship and get off course and end up on this island? And I'm already taking a lot of the concepts of my personal story and putting them on the page. I've done that with Isolation Island because I had a period of years where I felt so lonely. And so the validation that I felt making that a place and putting that on the map was incredible. But then there's also that little symbol of hope, the little growing plant, because that was also the time where I really put down roots and started to grow. I also have the bog of confusion because as I thought through what my enemies are, I think confusion is probably my biggest thing, that I don't want anyone to lead me towards confusion, to trick me, to manipulate me. And so we're going to make confusion the enemy on my map. It is time for me to make some birch trees. I made a handful in the place where I start, and then a whole forest of birch trees for one of my ending places. And I zoomed in so you could see that these are literally just little marks of the paintbrush. And so much of my map, when you zoom out, it looks good, you know exactly what it is. But when you look up close, you can see that it was just little strokes of the brush or marks of a pen that make it all come together. And so that is the start of my birch tree forest, which ends up looking so cool. Now, I want to show you what I love about the Stabilo All. It is water soluble, and so it's activated by water to make this dark black watercolor ink. But what is on my brush is not water. I actually have matte medium, and what that does is it still activates my pencil. It makes it that dark black, but it's also going to make it permanent because matte medium is acrylic. And so all of that doodling that I just did by just moving my brush over the pencil that I put down is now going to be permanent. So as I start to create, it brings more and more ideas and more creativity. The story starts to come alive for me. So I know now I'm going to start in the Great Lands. That is my origin point. And a lot of what I put on the map is like an inside joke with myself. I thought it was hilarious to name this the Great Lands when this is not the largest piece of land on the map. In fact, it's a tiny island and there's so much more to see and so much more to explore. I did the same thing with birch trees. I put a couple of birch trees just because that was an important symbol in my childhood. But on the other side of the map, I have a whole forest full of them. And so this is a reminder to myself of all of the things that were difficult to leave behind, but how it really paid off in the end, because a huge part of my story is moving away from home for the first time and really making roots away from home for the first time and what that was like. And so it's important to make my home feel important and great, but to also put on the map all of the even better things that were waiting for me outside of it. Now, I love the Stabilo All in the matte medium to make this map because I think that it helps to make every single line a little more artistic. It makes the edges of the map more believable to me than just drawn in pencil. And the way that the matte medium and the Stabilo All ink pool together kind of makes the topography for me too. And so now I'm taking little bits of that ink and I am making the fog that is over this bog of confusion. And this became really fun for me. I love this part of the map. And now I'm like, you know what? That bog is so big, I need to make my birch tree forest even bigger. And I have decided that I am going to make my birch trees. So I zoomed you in again so you could see this is just a paintbrush with a little bit of black paint on it that I used to make the black marks and stripes that are on a birch tree. And so I do that over there, and then I come over to my forest and I do the same exact thing. And it's literally just dabbing a little bit of paint here and there, and you can already tell, I think, that this is going to be a birch tree forest. Now it is time for the green gold. I have it on the end of an old bristly brush, and I am just dabbing it in for the foliage of these trees. And I'm gonna do this with green gold, with green, gold, and black, and then with just black paint. And that will give some variation in the leaves that are on the trees. And I am going to touch up the birch trees that are showing out the bottom, but I'm just gonna do the same exact thing that I did the first time around. One thing that you will see many times is I have just a wipe next to me. You should have a paper towel with some water on it next to you, because you can use that to erase any of the Stabilo All lines you don't want, or to wipe away some of that new paint that you don't want to be there. That is one of the things I have next to me the whole time. Now I'm painting in my little sprout onto Isolation Island, and it just makes me so happy. And this leads to a serendipity moment for me, because the paintbrush I used to make that plant still has a little bit of green on it, but then I put on the matte medium and I start outlining this land, and it's a little bit of green, the matte medium, and the Stabilo All, and the effect is awesome. I absolutely love how the green gold looks on my map. And so I also start thinking through the symbolism of the colors that will be on my map, and there are some areas that are really black and white, and then this area to me feels alive, so I put a lot of green, and I used color to kind of symbolize like what's happening here, what was this part of the story like. And so that green gold that was left on my paintbrush really helped me with the finished product. So as I look at my map and the journey that I am on, I start to think of this bog of confusion as almost like a false lighthouse that lures travelers to the wrong port or to the wrong place. And so I want to make it look like this lantern is glowing. And so all I do is dab a little bit of white gesso, and you can see me just smudge it with my fingers outward, and to me it looks like the beams of the light from a lantern. And so I'm gonna play around with that a little bit. I add a little bit of yellow in there, and a few more swirls of fog, and the bog of confusion is even more finished than it was before. And so as I'm making this, my imagination is running wild because I'm thinking, the bog of confusion is misleading these boats. Well, what is it leading them towards instead of towards that forest that's up above? And so I make a city called Distraction City, and I think I've lived here for quite a while. It's a place where you can be numb or disassociate or escape for a little while, and in many ways we all need it. It's a good survival mechanism for the times that it's needed, but it's not somewhere we want to live. And so I started thinking of this as the place that the bog of confusion could mislead you towards, instead of to the north, to this little forest that I've decided will be Friendship Forest, because to me, the ultimate winning is community and true friends. I have moved my island of magical creatures up to the north, and instead of magical creatures, I've thought of it as a magic island. And so to represent that, I start making these little dots that you've seen in my birch tree forest before. And so I'm going to put them on the island and kind of traveling over into this forest. It's now time for what I thought at the time were the finishing touches, which I want to add these unknown lands at the top, and I also knew I wanted to add a compass. And so I am now just going to fill in this area and start planning how to make the compass on my page. Now, I really wanted to add some sort of a compass rose. All of the maps had a compass, and I knew that I had this stencil. And so to add another mixed media element, I used some modeling paste and my stencil. And then here I am drawing in the scroll that I will use to name my map, which at this point, I didn't know what it was named. Now here's the thing. I thought I was going to finish this, let it dry, and be done with my map when I came back the next day and did some finishing touches. But what happened is that this map really awakened my imagination, and so I instead spent the rest of this night thinking about what I wanted to change, what I wanted to add to my story, what was missing. And I hope the same thing happens to you. Even if you only make the first 4 places on your map, I hope this gives your imagination a moment to run free and really dream and really, really think of yourself and picture yourself as a hero on a journey with a destination, with adventure, and with meaning to every stop along the way. Now, using a fine-tipped permanent pen, I've written in the names of all my places. I spent some time thinking of names for the oceans and the seas, and now it's time for all of the additions and changes that I had thought of in the time that I took away from this project. Now, one thing I was thinking is that there weren't many places for people to live on this map, and so I wanted to make a place that I had never been, the Port of the Populous. I forget, did I call it that or Populous Port? We'll find out. But this is the usual path. When you're coming from the Great Lands, you sail across the Great Ocean, and this is where you end up. This is where everybody goes, where everybody hangs out. And I've never been there, and it fits into part of my feelings as an Enneagram 4. But then I added in one of the other stops along the way that I felt like it was very important to have, and it's this little farm right here. This is the place where the produce is grown, where the food happens, where there's a group of people that live together, where everything is alive. There's also such a sense of just like cottage core to this here that I want to live here. I feel like this is the cutest little house, even though it's just a series of squares and rectangles. So I'm gonna make my little crops in the backyard, and I love this because it does represent to me what this stop on the journey has been. One thing I hope you've noticed in the creation of this tutorial and even the videos I made for it, I am not holding myself back from enjoying this. I refuse to think of myself as nerdy or cheesy for how much I threw myself into this little fantasy map. There is so much like slam you over the head symbolism here, but it was so fun for me, and it really helped me to find meaning and special moments from my life. It made me laugh, and it was really fun to make this. So throw yourself into your map, enjoy making it, have fun, and don't hold back. This is a really, really fun tutorial and a fun exercise, and you could even do this at different points in your life, and you could make a new map or add some new places. There's some unexplored territories. I'm going to finish mine up by just adding a little more of the aging that we did for the first tutorial, and then I'm going to name it, and my map is done. I hope you loved this project as much as I did. Do not miss this chance to romanticize your own life, to think of yourself as a hero, to think of the events in your life as meaningful very important parts of the journey that you're on. And let me use this as a chance to say again how glad that I am on this journey with you, that we're doing this together, and I can't wait to see your map.